of one man who persuaded his friends to watch every Godzilla movie ever made. This world is on the brink of destruction. We need you now, Godzillavangelists! Godzillavangelists, a Geek Stew Network podcast, produced and hosted by Ryan Sargent, featuring Sam Schlenker and Joanna Brodecki. So, Sam, Joanna, I have a very important story to tell you today.
Let's hear it.
About a sweet little boy who was in a mall, and his parents gave him a coin to make a wish in the fountain at the mall.
Oh boy.
And this boy reached deep inside his dreams, thinking of, like, what could be the best thing to wish for? What kind of magic could this wishing fountain make true? And he thought of a certain movie, and with all his heart, with all the genuine love he was capable of, he wished for fairies to be real because of Mothra and her beautiful twin fairies, who I had the hugest crush on.
So this wasn't because of Peter Pan?
No, it was absolutely
not Tinkerbell.
Because of Mothra.
You know, of all the fairy movies to inspire you, so I feel like I didn't even know there were fairies. So I don't know how I feel about this, Ryan. I feel like Peter Pan is the right answer.
Look, there is no pair of twins more charming than Emi and Yumi Ito, also known as the Peanuts.
Also interesting that they're known as the Peanuts.
Yeah, see, if you had wished for Peanuts to be real, I would have understood completely.
They're also much older than you, I imagine. Like, they seem to look much older than whoever you were at the time.
Well, yeah, but that didn't stop me from thinking they were, like, the two most beautiful women I'd ever seen.
Was the height included in that assessment? Because they are very small, Ryan.
They are very small. It was not a consideration I thought of at the time.
I guess you were very small, too.
I was. I was a little bit taller than them, but not by much.
Oh, not by much.
For the listeners at home, Ryan is like 3'2".
He comes in at about 7 inches high.
For those of you who don't know what we're talking about, you should have watched Mothra. But we're going to get into that very soon. But before we do, I'd like to bring in this week's special guest. She's a good friend of Joanna. They were both theater majors at USC. And her name is Charlotte Spangler.
Hello!
Woo.
Charlotte is an improviser and sketch performer with the No Boys Allowed group. She also recently appeared on the podcast Hey Arnold, Hey, and you can see her at the see her in Three Sisters at the Elysium Theater. By the time this come out, it'll probably be on right now, so go see it.
Woo!
That was
I do it all.
such a good
great.
intro.
Yeah.
Thank you. I was channeling my inner game show host.
Charlotte, you are a busy lady.
I know.
But the
Sadly.
real question here is, Charlotte, tell me about any and all Godzilla/giant monster experience you have up to now. Tell me everything up to when you first saw Mothra with us.
Well, let me tell you, it is so extensive. I watched Kong Skull Island recently.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the last thing I remember watching that was about giant monsters, except I also loved Mighty Joe Young as a child, which is not really the same thing, but
It counts.
it kind of counts. And that's all I got.
Does Harry and the Hendersons
I
count?
think. I never saw that.
Look,
so.
somebody has actually asked me my opinion on what counts as a kaiju or a giant monster. And the rule is they have to be either taller or longer than 20 feet and they have to be supernatural somehow.
Okay, well, Kong Skull Island definitely counts.
So that does, but Harry and the Hendersons
Wait,
does
Ryan,
not.
where did you come up with these rules and restrictions, these guidelines?
This is just based on my detailed research into all the giant monster movies. It seems like in order for it to really count and really be like part of that canon, that's about the size they have to be, and there has to be something supernatural. Like, you wouldn't count Jaws as a giant monster movie,
Okay.
but it's
I
very
guess this makes
close.
sense.
Ryan, here's a question for you.
But, yeah, you go.
Are you okay?
Ouch!
I just can't believe that. I mean, I guess it makes sense. I don't know. It concerns me what the situation was where you actually broke down the criteria of a kaiju.
Somebody asked me. They wanted my
He had a
expert
free
opinion.
Saturday afternoon, Sam. What was he supposed to do but help the people who were pondering about this?
That's fair.
Specifically, somebody asked me if Clifford the Big Red Dog.
Absolutely. Absolutely,
That
yes.
definitely
does.
that fits all the things.
It's true.
And he's
I-
bright red, so that's very
Is he
supernatural.
supernatural, though?
Yes, he
Yeah,
was.
doesn't he talk too?
He was magically enlarged by the power of Emily's love, which is a supernatural.
Cute. That is so cute.
Are we watching any Clifford in our podcast?
Yes.
Please bring me back if you do.
I don't think there was a Clifford movie. There should have been.
Oh, there's definitely, I think, like
Yeah,
a
there's
CGI
gotta be.
Clifford
I think there are
movie.
like 400 Clifford movies. It's either 0 or 400.
If they could have a lot of Curious George films, I'm convinced there must be some Clifford out there.
We'll do some research. In the meantime,
Yeah, Clifford, 1994, IMDb. There you go. Check it out.
all right, I was wrong. Speaking of IMDb credits, before we get into Mothra today, there's somebody very special I'd like to talk about. I promise I won't get too nerdy, but one of the writers for this movie was a guy named Shinichi Sekizawa, who doesn't get a lot of credit, but I absolutely credit him with the series going on as long as it has, because as you'll see in this movie, he sort of came up with the idea of like, well, what if you could reason with a monster? What if you could rationalize with a giant monster and negotiate with it and ask it to do things or trick it into doing things? And he wrote almost all of the following like Godzilla movies into the mid 70s. So he's like a big influence on it, and an erstwhile communist, so there's a lot of like communist socialist themes in these movies that are really wacky and interesting. So I want to give big ups to my boy Shinichi right here.
Snaps for him.
Snaps person.
That's
Snaps for Shinichi.
Yeah,
Snaps for Shinichi.
honestly a really creative guy. But without any further ado, let's see his first giant monster movie, Mothra. All right, guys. So, do you remember how Mothra starts?
Credits.
There are credits.
Always.
I know,
credits.
because right
Good
off the
loophole.
bat, in the credits, there is the Peanuts. And I'm like, Peanuts are in this? I'm already in. I'm already intrigued.
Not Snoopy,
An
unfortunately.
early adaptation.
But after the credits, thank you for that smarmy loophole right there. This giant freighter gets caught in a typhoon and it shipwrecks. And even though it crashes on a super radioactive island that's been used for like atomic testing, the ship's crew is alive and well, and they get taken back and they're like, oh yeah, there's people on this island who took care of us, even though no one is supposed to live there.
My first note that would have been at this point that I wrote this, I wrote, already a better looking movie than the previous two. It looks great. It looks great.
Yes, it does look great, and we'll get into this more, but I feel like it's honestly on par for the special effects of the time. Like, I think for 1961, it's hard to imagine doing much better.
Yeah.
But anyway,
that's true.
During the meeting with the survivors, we meet our main protagonists, or at least two of them. We meet Michi, the photographer, and Zentan, the reporter, also known as the Bulldog.
Oh, I love them. I love them.
Yeah, they're so tenacious and spunky, and like,
No,
honestly,
they're
like,
aggressive.
They-
They're like sneaky, but you don't feel bad that they're doing it. You're like on their
I
side.
just like the facial expressions.
Right.
They're very excited and expressive.
And for once, a working woman in one of these films, she's not just
Yeah.
fake crying on the
Yeah.
side, as is typical, I was, happy
Yeah.
to see her there.
Yes, these reporter type of characters are very common in the Shinichi Sekizawa screenplays, and that's why your like Godzilla avatar on our website is a reporter, Sam, because there's so many of these characters.
No, it's because he's Inspector Gadget, but that's okay.
Yeah, I guess I'll take it over fish pilot. That's like a less common profession in these movies, and for good reason. I feel like reporters actually have a reason to be trying to figure out the plot, and fish pilots, they don't have a lot of sway on these monster attacks.
But anyway, so he's the bulldog. He never lets go, and they're very charming. I immediately liked him. Like, it had been a while since I saw this movie, and I was like, he's so charming.
He
Like-
also always has this goofy smile, just like the goofiest aloof smile, but he actually knows what he's doing. He also his spirit animal kind of reminded me of that happy-go-lucky airplane pilot from a few films back.
Oh,
Yeah, Fred Flintstone.
Yes, Fred Flintstone. Yes.
Except not as creepy or and
Right.
much more charming,
He-
I feel.
More
In this one, he's trying to help two tiny girls instead of harm them.
We're never gonna let that go. We should find a way to put that in every episode.
Oh, it will be. We don't have to try. I trust you too.
I'll hold down the fort and bring
Honestly,
up the
though.
tiny girl situation in every movie.
Thank you, Sam. We really appreciate it.
We'll see if it passes the test of children being in peril from old weirdos.
Anyway, indeed. No, we really do need to move.
Wait, before, but I have a quote I wrote down from this section.
Okay, all right. Real quick.
So the reporters are talking, and there's a discussion over photos, and then someone says something like, "Photos are like guillotines," and
Okay.
and my favorite quote that I wrote down was, and I quote, "And like the guillotine, you don't always know your picture has been taken." And and the reason I wrote this down is I have never heard of a stealth guillotine. Everyone knows. Anyone who's ever been guillotined knows they're being guillotined.
Nah. Yeah, it's not like really like a particularly mobile device.
There's no one who's just like going about their daily business and then yeah.
No! Surprise attack. Surprise
Yeah.
guillotine. Paparazzi guillotine.
You know the translations are never direct and
Right.
100% accurate for these.
That one was particularly off. I just watched the Japanese version, but I'll explain what it means in a second. Because the guy who's complaining about cameras being like guillotines, he's Chujo, Dr. Chujo. He's like a Polynesian culture expert. And he hates having his picture taken, but he's going to be on this expedition to the island. So Zen and Michi go to talk to him. And what it's actually supposed to mean is... he says, the click of the camera is like the sound of the guillotine to me. And Michi says, oh, well, they, turns out they're making guillotines that don't make noises these days. And so that's how she's like telling him that she secretly took his picture with her cool little lighter cam.
That makes a lot more sense.
That makes more sense, yeah.
That's
Less
a
fun,
that's a great
more-
line. That's like
Yeah.
like they took something that was really great and translated it into something that was complete nonsense.
Yeah, they took a really creepy, like, cool line and... Oh, well. Now we can favorite it in our hearts forever.
Yes, but Chujo, let's see, who's he played by? This guy pops up a lot too. Hiroshi Koizumi. He's he always plays a scientist character. and he's always like kind of socially awkward, but he has a very friendly face. You just trust him. He also has a chubby little kid brother named Shinji, who has a pet mouse, and hijinks ensue when the mouse
Oh, that's his brother.
gets into the room.
They went off for like 6 minutes on that whole mouse thing.
They did. It was a little goofy.
Yeah, this movie took like a very roundabout way of like getting to the monster. It's like, when is this happening?
I think we were like 57 minutes in before the monster even showed up.
Oh yeah.
I've got it timed. It might actually be a little bit sooner in the American version we watched, but it was 46 minutes into the Japanese
Dang,
version
I was
that Mothra
close.
makes her first appearance.
Not that I don't love the journalists and like the island, vacation we went on, but felt a little distracted.
Yeah, it's definitely a slow build, which you can argue about the efficacy of that, but I like that it gives us time to get to know the characters. Speaking of memorable characters, this expedition is financed by a Rolisican, quote unquote, named Nelson, who's like the most obviously slimy villain of all time. He also happens to remind me quite a bit of our president, both in the way he talks and his facial expressions. He has that pouting lip down.
Yeah, and he's got his little henchman too.
Yes. He doesn't want the press on the expedition, and he wants to review all the scientific data before it's released. So he's like very like obviously trying to hide something, and Rolisica is like a weird stand-in for America and Russia that's like trying to be an equal opportunity offender, I guess. Or maybe Japan was just afraid of being occupied again.
Right.
But anyway, so the Rolisicans and the Japanese, they all get together and they get on the ship to Infant Island. But of course, Zen sneaks aboard. Doesn't matter that no press is allowed. He's gonna get his scoop.
How did he get on board? He was definitely on land while the ship was about 60 feet away from the dock.
Yeah, it's kind of unclear. It shows him like running through a crowd, and then the next thing you know, he's in Nelson's bunk.
Right.
Sorry, not literally in his bunk. He's not trying to seduce Nelson.
Different movie.
Different movie. That's my fan film. Sorry, guys. But the way I think of Nelson, he's like a cartoon villain who keeps getting reminded that he's not in a cartoon by the other characters.
I was gonna say he's a little Snidely Whiplash. Like I feel like if he had a mustache to twirl, he would.
Mm-hmm. He would. He's played by a half Japanese, half American man named Jerry Ito, who was hilariously mistranslated as Jelly Ito in the credits of this movie.
I missed that.
His voice was also very like, hello, right? He was the one with the low voice that was like, listen to me. Like,
Yeah,
nope, like
exactly.
very American. And
He's a lot of fun. He's not a good actor, but he's absolutely hilarious to watch. So the expedition lands on this island, and they figure out there's a protected oasis in the center. And Chujo goes there, and he finds this cavern with these engravings with this weird symbol and all these like beautiful, weird Technicolor plants. And he gets attacked by one. And just as he's like about to pass out, he's saved by these two tiny women. So the other guys show up to like save him, and Nelson of course tries to steal the girls, and they're all surrounded by these ominous drumming natives, which are unfortunately Japanese people in brown face.
Yeah.
But,
yes, very, yep.
It was interesting though that they kind of just appear out of the shadows, right? Don't they just kind of like creep out of nowhere?
Yeah, where were they the whole time?
But like they were surrounding them, and they just kind of wander up. I don't know. There's something kind of weird. I'll just say it right now. This movie is a David Lynch movie. Like it is. It's totally like if Rodan was M. Night Shyamalan, this is David Lynch. And so yeah, I don't know. There was something like strangely like unsettling about them being in brownface, combined with coming out of nowhere, where it almost was like, this just makes me feel strange. but I kind of like it in like there's something kind of interesting about it.
It like took them a while to decide that they didn't want them on their island. They're like, we're gonna let them get real far.
Yeah, I think
we'll
they were
pop
just
up.
like, they can't take our little women, our
Yes.
wonderful little fairies.
Yeah. So here's a question about that too. Is right. So they obviously prize these two tiny women, but they also don't do a whole lot to stop anyone from taking them. I mean, they're just chilling under a leaf, and anyone can take them.
Yeah, wait, does Nelson have guns? I can't remember.
So what happens is originally all the scientists are together, and he's like, and his goons like take out their guns. Oh yeah, he's also French, and and all the other scientists are like, "What? Are you crazy? Are you Snidely Whiplash?" And tell him to put them down, and they do. And then he comes back later and steals the fairies, and he like genocides all the natives, which is actually pretty sad.
Yeah, but also those death scenes were like very slow and no blood.
Yeah.
I had to cut that out of the production cost.
It was an artistic choice.
But anyway, yeah, Nelson and his flunkies, they come back at night. I don't know how they got to the island again, but they take the girls and they kill a bunch of natives, and one of the old men pleads to Mothra, their mysterious goddess, and her egg is revealed behind this cavern wall.
A big ass egg.
Yes. Beautiful egg. Definitely looks like a bird egg, not a bug egg, but...
At this part, I was hit with memories of Rodan, and I had a little, like, PTSD from, like, that film. I was like, no, don't bring it back.
So you were literally that character from Rodan who had PTSD from seeing
Yeah,
eggs.
exactly.
Okay. So time jump, and Nelson is putting on this show in Japan where he forces the fairies to sing. And it's like the talk of the town, the whole theater's crowded.
Huge theater, by the way. Massive theater.
Sam, as you pointed out, you wouldn't be able to see the fairies most of the time during this show.
Yes.
But,
Also, they were in this little cage.
Yeah.
So how do the people know down there that their tickets were worthwhile? He could have just been playing some music.
Yeah, it could have just been those tiny dolls that they used in the
It was
effects
very
earlier.
it was very Phantom of the Opera, them, gliding across the ceiling.
There are a lot of weird things about this show. I have to say, I had a lot of questions about it. And one being, yeah, exactly, you can't see them. And then the second being, it seems like they steal them because it's like, they will finally make this, like King Kong, they're a wonder of the world that'll amaze people. But they put them in a flying carriage, which is arguably more amazing than them.
Yeah.
Also, they had like 50 regular-sized people surrounding them dancing once they finally did land.
Yeah.
And like, I have bad eyes. Like, I'm -8 for my prescription, right? I straight up would not have been able to see them if I was in the third row.
Right. That's one thing. Again, a flaw of just as a show, as a show. That's a fatal flaw. Is you have two 1-foot people, and you hide them the whole time. You make it. You put so many things on stage on a giant stage that you can't see them.
Guys, how much would you pay for this show? Like, what's your top, max ticket price you're paying? Sunday matinee. No,
Well-
Saturday evening.
Oh, good question.
as I said, this is a very spiritually important thing to me from childhood. So I would probably pay thousands. To
Oh
see
my
this show.
God, thousands?
Yeah.
I would pay
$36.
75. I'd pay
Was this like
$75.
Hamilton of the day?
Oh, bigger than that.
Yeah. Japan 1961, you couldn't get tickets for months.
Yeah, I'd pay 75 max.
So yeah,
That's pretty good.
Because that's like paying for the speculation, and if it doesn't happen, I'm not so in debt that I have to cry over it, but $100 would be way too much.
Well, I guess
I'm glad this is resolved.
I'd want front row seats at least. I'd have to get.
well, you almost
Well,
need
you
that.
can't take the balcony.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hope they give you binoculars when you come to the show. Cause,
Oh, yeah.
Complimentary binoculars.
yeah.
But anyway, it very quickly turns out to be more than just a show. these little women, their song is calling out to Mothra and letting her know where they are.
Okay, Ryan
And,
or Sam or Charlotte, give us your best interpretation of the song, please, so the users can remember it correctly.
I know
All right,
Ryan
well,
remembers.
I know the
Plate.
words. I know the words by heart. I'll go last.
I don't. I'm trying to
Just
remember
a
the
couple
words.
bars.
I didn't
I'll
even
help you
know
out
there
with the
were
first-
real words, to be honest.
It's Indonesian.
You know them by heart.
But
That's
the
awesome.
the first three words are Masura ya Masura. Not like that, obviously. But
Okay, is anyone going to bite the bullet and do it, or should I go for it?
Go,
You should
Joe.
do it.
go first.
Here's my memory of the song. That's about it. It's just on repeat.
They better be pretty well mic'd up there.
Yeah, little tiny laughs.
I'm not a soprano, I'm an alto, so please excuse me. No, I couldn't quite hit the tone that they were hitting.
Yeah, that was like some glass shattering high notes they were hitting there.
Yeah.
Well, they are very small.
right.
Yeah, it's like
Somebody
some
else.
sonic waves they gotta send out there.
Somebody else do it.
Sam. Perfect.
Oh, I totally just peaked really hard on my mic. So that's what you're gonna get. It's gonna sound like that.
All right. All right, here we go. It's Masura ya Masura Dongan kasakuyan Indomu Gustaviado Hamba Hamba Muyan Randa Banguradan Tojukanra Kasakuyan. And then it repeats.
What does it
Whoa.
mean?
Were you reading the words, or that was by heart?
No, that was by heart.
That's
It's
amazing.
beautiful.
Yeah.
I can look up with the words.
Oh, I just assumed you also had that information. Like, it just seems pretty complicated. Like, they're giving a lot of information. It's not just like, help us, help us. It's like, hey, we're here. This is what's going on. We're stuck in this thing. We're in a carriage. Like, you know, they're probably they're giving a whole story.
People are paying $75 plus to see the show.
Yeah. Ryan's paying
We're making a
thousands.
killing.
Yeah, do they get royalties on
uh,
this? Are they making money on this?
Oh, you know they're not. They're locked in that little cage.
That's
Right,
true. Yeah.
exactly.
So sad.
They are slaves.
Yeah.
It's actually very
Ticketmaster is
sad.
making way more than they are.
Oh, Charlotte, you got the connects.
I know.
But the lyrics mean, Mothra, oh Mothra, if we were to call for help, over time, over sea, like a wave, you'd come, our guardian angel.
Oh,
Oh, so sweet.
that is
That is
sad.
very sweet.
The guardian angel.
But yes, after the show, the good guys go backstage and they demand to see the fairies. And the
Quick, sorry.
Shuriken-
Do they have
the-
wings? They don't, right?
They don't have wings.
Okay, just wanted to
They're
clarify.
not, like,
So they're not fairies. They're,
not
just
fairies.
tiny
They're-
people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're absolutely
they're
not
not
fairies.
classic English fairies.
Listen, or if they were fairies, they'd be able to like appear and disappear whenever they wanted. They can't transport via either of those forms.
Yeah, they
so-
don't have pixie dust.
Yeah, they're not fairies.
Minor spoiler, in the next movie they appear in, they actually can appear and disappear.
well,
places.
where
Well.
was that useful talent?
Yeah, that
Where
would
was
have
that
been
in the
super
first
helpful.
film?
I guess after they got kidnapped, they were like, well, we better learn how to do this. Yeah. And so pick up some self-defense classes.
Mothra's like, by the way, I forgot, guys. This is a thing you can do.
But they do have telepathy, and so they use that to communicate with the good guys, and they tell them that Mothra's coming, and they don't want to hurt people, but Mothra's going to leave a path of destruction in her way to them if they aren't freed.
I do want to say
Yeah.
at this point, by the way, too, Sam has not yet fully shared his full opinions on the film. At this point, once this was all happening, I was like way more invested and into it than I may have been in any of the films previously, except for maybe the first one. But I was like, this plot is funky and weird, and I am into it.
Now feels as good a time as any to say my thoughts. I actually didn't want to. I kind of wanted to keep them because I know.
We
I
can
know
keep
I'm
them till the
wild
end if you
card.
want. I just wanted to share my joy at this point in the film.
I feel like I should say I had some complicated feelings on this movie. It's complicated how much I loved this movie. It's so great. Yeah, this is my favorite. I am in. I like this is a weird crazy movie. It looks great. it's wonderful. I don't even know. Again, there are so many layers to it. Like I said, it's a David Lynch movie. I can't. They're tiny little girls, and they maybe are put in a magic carriage, and Mothra is there helping. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's confusing and great, but Ryan, I think Mothra is, aside from the first one that we watched, is the only other one that I would rewatch of my own accord. Just maybe I'll just show someone this weird film one day in the future in my life. So I think that's a big compliment to it.
Well, thank you. I love this one too. I was nervous because I remembered Rodan being better than it was. But this one held up, and it's extremely fun and colorful, and easily in my top 10 giant monster movies.
Also just simply because it broke the plot of oh man, something weird's going on. Oh no, it's a big monster. How are we going to defeat it? It had a little more of a through line, some intricacies thrown in.
Yeah.
So I was excited about that. Because I really was thinking, I was we have 5,700 more of these to watch, and they are all going to have the same plot.
Yeah, and we can thank this again. Thank Shinichi Sekizawa.
Shinichi snaps.
Because it's the human characters are actually involved. They actually have something to do with the monster character. And, there's some interplay between the two plot lines.
Yeah, and we haven't even there's so many. I think what I love about it is there's so many other things that I would never associate with giant monster movies. That be it like the Expedition in the Jungle, and the guy who wants to well, actually I was gonna say wants to steal the thing to make a great show, but that is literally King Kong, so I take that one back. But the kind of mustache twirling villain who sets it all off, there's no great environmental catastrophe. And the kid hiding in a chicken, we haven't even gotten to that, but that alone, I mean, come on.
Yeah, the second half of this movie really picked up.
It's so good, yeah.
But once the carriage arrived, I was Cinderella to the ball, ready to go.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And while we're gushing, there's this really cool scene about this part where the fairies show is intercut with Mothra swimming through the ocean and destroying a ship.
Favorite part. When that caterpillar crushes that boat. How does it swim? It has no fins. It's just a worm. It has a lot of upward motion in order to get that boat.
Yeah, Mothra swims like a whale, constantly cresting. She's just always bobbing.
Yeah, she must have a great core.
Oh, I was gonna say one of those banana boats that gets towed behind a boat, except there's no one towing it. It's just going.
It's just the spirit of the tiny girls.
Yesterday, I was reading this book, I learned about this snail that the first time it jumps into water, it spits out air and creates bubbles around itself, and then it just floats in the wind, and when those bubbles pop, it sinks and dies. But isn't that such a weird existence? It just kind of
why?
From what I assume,
it just
farts at the beginning of its
swim.
existence, gets some air bubbles.
That is very strange.
Sorry, guys, I had to share.
That's okay. No, it's intriguing.
Someone has to tell them, the parents have to be listen, honey.
It's called a violet snail. So
once you run out of bubbles, you die.
Yep.
That's the only time that is ever a sentence that is true.
What if they never know that? They always think they're about to go on a wonderful journey.
Yeah, just floating along easy breezy.
No one ever tells them
that
they're gonna pop.
Their last thought is always just oh no.
That's how this works. I must tell my family, and then they die.
Yeah.
Something we also missed is your best buddy Takeshi Shimura is back, Joanna. He's the newspaper editor.
I know, he's changing it up a little bit.
Yeah, yes. He's a very grumpy, crusty man in this one, but he does it well, especially in the Japanese version.
I mean, when does he not do his parts well, though?
True. He's a consummate professional.
Yeah.
And I think he wanted, after Raids Again, he was like, you know what? I am grumpy now, so give me a grumpy role.
So Zen and Chujo press Nelson on a disaster. They're like, this is happening because of you, but he refused to admit his guilt, of course. And his lawyer in the Japanese version has this great quote, which is just like perfectly setting the new tone for these movies. He says, "Whatever some giant monster does, it's unrelated to our work." It's just like, by this time,
We should know.
Japan has accepted that giant monsters are just like a way of life. It's just going to keep happening to them.
Not even front page news anymore.
No, there's actually several moments in this movie where the newspaper editor tells Zen to put the Nelson story above a Mothra story, like the story of this skeezy showman is more newsworthy than the giant monster at this point. So Zen and Chujo, they fight through the goons so they can talk to the fairies, and Zen knows judo, which is really cool. It's like a nice surprise that this kind of like goofy, chubby guy wrecks all the bad guys. I liked it.
Yeah, I wrote fight choreo with 8 O's during this part. I got excited.
I wrote silly hallway fight. Which
Similar.
Oh yeah, it was on the stairs.
yeah, because it is like, and again, another thing I like about this is like it's a pretty interesting scene of them infiltrating, and it is a deliberately goofy fight. Like it is like it's like fun. They're not trying to be like, this is really raw and gritty here. And he's a silly character, and I'm all in so far.
Yeah, so they talk to the girls, and they're like, "Sorry, can't help you," which is fair. And this ties into what I'll bring up later, which is this very feminist message of this movie, I feel like. But they decide that they can go to another doctor, and they come up with this telepathy-blocking glass box that they can put over the girls to try and stop the communication with Mothra. And meanwhile, Mothra is like being attacked by an air force.
Yeah,
so they
at
try
this
to
point,
light her
I
on
was like,
fire.
how far away is Mothra, and how fast is she moving? Because there's like she's not like, whoop, she's there. It's taking her some time.
Right.
I might be stepping back a little bit, but when they go and talk to the girls, they explain, right? They're like, "Oh yeah, we've called to Mothra. She's coming to you. There's no stopping it." Right?
Right.
And then
Right.
then they step in the carriage and it flies away, and then we cut to Mothra. How amazing is that? It's amazing.
That was so great. That their carriage was set up not just from the side of the stage. It's like rooms away from the stage.
It is a magic carriage. It is absolutely a magic carriage. And yeah,
The
again,
best
like
exit I've seen in cinema to date.
if there ever was a more baller exit, then yep, there's no stopping it. You're all gonna die. Monster's coming. Step into the carriage and fly away.
They're pretty badass. There's a reason that I'm so in love with them.
Just about them for 1 sec is that I want to know where all their fun tiny outfits came from.
Yes, who's making those tiny outfits?
I don't know. They're very detailed.
Those natives have very nimble fingers, and they
Yeah, they have a lot of sequins at their disposal.
Yes.
It's true. They're very fashionably dressed, and they
Yeah.
have great makeup too.
Yeah,
The
like
blue
who
and
puts
red
that
eyeshadow.
makeup on with like a single hair?
Did they have the makeup on the island, or was that specifically for the show?
I don't think so. I think it was,
I
and they
think
only
they
had one
had-
outfit on the island.
Right on the island, they had those like brown bag dresses.
Right. Oh, so Nelson had to do their makeup and wardrobe.
Yeah.
Question for you, Ryan: were there little peanut dolls that you could like dress up after this film? Come with 3
Oh
outfits.
my god.
You can like mix and match.
I really hope.
It seems
so.
like a business that could have been great if they didn't have it.
This sounds like a hole in my collection, actually, that I need to fill.
Yes, you definitely do.
But yeah, they bring the box to Nelson, and he acts like a total dick, but he decides to use it. But meanwhile, it's kind of too late, because Mothra shows up at a dam near Tokyo, and there's these 2 like super goofy people working at the dam, and one of them like swallows like a dumpling whole and chokes on it, and he has this like very goofy take where he's choking on a dumpling and like struggling to dial a number, and it kind of reminded me of the Powerpuff Girls in a way, just like dialing the Powerpuff line.
I don't think I have any recollection of this dumpling scene, but I'm glad that it happened now hearing about it again.
It's pretty fun. And then Mothra smashes the dam, and like everybody's evacuating, and Zen gets to save a little baby in like melodramatic tradition. It's like a kind of an unnecessary scene, but I guess it's showing that the danger of Mothra is getting closer, and it's a great looking scene. The dam bursting is a really fun special effects scene. Shinji, the little brother of Chujo, finally shows up in the story again. And he's like, I'm going to save the fairies!
Oh, he's so cute.
And
Yeah. This is
he goes to the theater. Do you want to take over here, Sam?
well, no. I was just gonna say that.
No,
I
please
will
do.
though.
Please do.
Yeah, he hides in a chicken. He hides in a chicken in the room with the bad guys, and just immediately like watching it. And I'm glad that Ryan has elaborated on his feelings toward these two little girls because this in my head I was like, Ryan would do this. This is Ryan. He's in the chicken right now. Yeah, he's so noble, and he does hide in a chicken. And Joanna, while we were watching it, once he climbs out, she said just totally genuinely, she goes, "Why did no one check that chicken?" Which made me laugh too. Kid shows some initiative,
Yeah.
and he goes to try to steal the girls.
He does. Something that we missed about this time that I really liked, it's just a little observation, but at the beginning of the movie, Nelson's like very pleased whenever the girls sing, and he's like happy, and he's like, oh, this is like making me money, and like do it whatever you want. But as the story goes on, he gets like more and more like furious and like frightened by their song. It's like very Telltale Heart-y, and I think it's really
good
cool.
reference.
But yeah, he decides to flee to Realistica because finally Japan and Realistica get their shit together and they're like, maybe we shouldn't condone slavery, and send some police to free the girls, but he's gone by then. Meanwhile, Mothra is wriggling her way through Tokyo, smashing buildings, and she gets to Tokyo Tower and builds a little peanut-shaped cocoon for herself.
So I did have a question about this, which is,
Yes.
so we are to assume that the cocoon turns you into a moth, and I wonder why she didn't just do that first and then very easily fly over. Like
Yes.
it seems like that's a treacherous place to have to like worm yourself all the way over, halfway through be like, all right, now I will cocoon, and then you can fly
Agreed.
and turn cars over.
Yes. I don't know. It's just like, it's a biological thing, I guess.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, you know, as soon as the little girls summon it, it's like, well, time to go.
Yeah, maybe. Do you think Mothra didn't know that was gonna happen?
Oh,
And was like,
shit.
I'm just
Didn't
a-
know the moth thing.
Yeah,
It's like when you're a little kid.
It's like, what's happening?
You have no
It
idea.
just starts going through puberty.
Right, exactly.
Pimples
I was gonna say, it's
everywhere.
like when you're a little kid, you have no idea that puberty is gonna hit you, and then it does, and you're like totally taken
and you're
aback.
like, oh no, I'll have to stay at this radio tower for a bit.
Yeah, you
Poor
guys remember that
Mothra.
part when you were 13 when you had to do that?
I do. It was
Yeah,
rough.
it's rough.
Her mom wasn't around to tell her about her metamorphosis, so it was very awkward the first time she.
Very public display.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, that part where you
Yeah.
hit puberty and everyone shoots at you.
Another observation. Very impressed by the explosions are actually hitting Mothra.
I know,
now
thank God.
and leaving little scorch marks. They finally figured that out, which is great.
No more ghost bullets.
Wasted ammo. Like hours upon hours of it.
Ugh. All right, open fire.
Oh, good. And yes, trivia time. So the reason they used Tokyo Tower here, it was just 3 years old at the time, and it was the tallest structure in the world.
So a little
very
showing off
briefly.
there.
Hey.
Yes, Japan like trying to show off and be like, hey, look at this cool building we have, and then it gets destroyed.
I enjoy that. I enjoy the fact
Yeah.
like that feels weirdly like self-referential and kind of like we're kind of we've poked fun at well, not even poked fun. We've very blatantly criticized Russia and America, and here's this thing we really like, and we're gonna destroy it because we're having a good time, guys.
Yeah, it's a little bit less self-serious than Godzilla while still being entertaining.
Oh, you think so? You think that We'll Be With Daddy Soon would happen in this movie?
I'd say that timing the distance maybe made it a little easier to throw a few jokes in there.
Yeah. And we actually have our first positive use of radiation because Japan and Orlisica build these really cool, weird, wacky science fiction weapon called the atomic heat cannon to destroy Mothra's cocoon.
But it doesn't work, right?
No, well, they destroy the cocoon, but it's too late. She gets out and flies away unscathed. She completes her metamorphosis.
Oh, just I thought that what's it called now? The heat ray. Just
the atomic heat cannon.
Thank you. Also, Atomic Heat Cannon, great band name. Another one.
It is.
There's so many. See, the thing is, metal is just scary nerds, and like metal music, which I know I just stole from you, but
you did steal from me. But I'm very happy. I'm flattered.
Ryan has often said that metalheads are just scary nerds, and because of that, no doubt SoundCloud is lousy with Atomic Heat Cannon bands. But no,
there has to at least be a song.
I admit that my first reaction was that the heat cannon just made Mothra change faster and or bigger.
Could be. It was like the heat pad for her cramps.
Yeah. Yes.
Callback.
What? Well, yes. I'll just roll with
Sorry,
that.
it was a little bit strained.
No, that's it. Yeah.
Puberty,
Oh my God.
As Nelson and pals get to Relisica, they engage in some good old maniacal evil laughing.
Oh,
And
yeah, that was good.
I didn't notice this the first time we watched, but I was looking around his ranch house, and it has 3 different kinds of wallpaper, a door cover, and curtains that all have loud, colored prints that are all completely different from each other. It's hysterical.
So he's a bold decorator.
He's very bold. He's a bold businessman, bold showman, bold decorator. But of course, as soon as I hear the news that Mothra is alive, Nelson throws a tantrum and he smashes the radio, and they go on the run again. So yeah, everything starts to move really quickly here. Mothra goes on a rampage in what is hilariously called New Kirk City.
Yeah.
I wonder what that's supposed to be. And the good guys, they all fly to Relisica to try to help. I love this scene. It's so melodramatic on all sides, but it's also somehow well done, just in terms of the shots. Nelson gets caught in an angry mob, and he goes nuts, and the mob reminds him of the natives, their staring eyes as he kidnapped the women, and so he bursts out of his car and he shoots a cop, and then he's finally killed in front of a church. I love that scene.
That was amazing. I am 100% on board with all of that.
I think I looked away for a second, and when I looked back and realized where they were and the sudden change of scenery, I was like, what? All right.
Where'd all these white people come from?
Yeah, basically.
There's definitely some weird nonsense symbolism, I think, with the cross on the church. And I don't know that it means anything, but it's just melodramatic and fun.
I can tell you that, having seen the Japanese version, there were a good few minutes cut out around this part of the movie.
Oh, yes.
That make it absolutely clear that the Japanese writers of the movie were trying to compare Mothra with Jesus.
Oh,
awesome.
Interesting.
How else is Mothra like Jesus? I'm just curious.
I'm not sure. I believe this was written by the perspective of people who did perhaps not understand Christianity very well.
That's
but
fair.
It's clear what they're trying to do. But yeah, the good guys arrive right on time. They skid right over Nelson's dead body. Just kidding. But they might as well have. They show up right in front of the church, and in the Japanese version only, there's this priest who's like, "We have to put our fate in the hands of God now," and he looks up, and you see the sun shining behind the cross of the church, and the church bells are ringing, and the good guys are like, "Wait a minute, this reminds me of the Mothra symbol that we saw in the cave, and the bells sound like what the girls are singing, and like maybe
A
we
bit of
can
a
use
jump, by
these-
the way. The bells and
It is
the.
a bit of a
I thought
jump.
that was a bit of a jump, but
They sound more like an early synthesizer than a bell.
Like that.
Yeah, well, I mean, early in the movie when they don't speak English, they make weird noises exactly like that.
Yep.
But anyway, so they figure like maybe we can use this to pacify Mothra, and so they go to the airport and they paint the giant Mothra symbol on the runway, and the church bells ring, and Mothra like peacefully, nicely lands on the runway, and the fairies are finally freed.
Yay! So two quick things, two quick thoughts I had. One is we skipped over the token tiny miniature car shot because there
that's
was
true.
one. I'm just looking out for those. Gotta have one, otherwise it's not a Godzilla.
True.
And the second thing is I was wondering, like, if Mothra is so huge and Mothra's wing air just causes so much destruction, how is she gonna gently pick up two tiny women?
Yes. How are they gonna stay on?
that was my thought too.
Does she have a little backpack for them to sit in or something? Like,
Didn't they just climb on her wing? She was like one bristle of her wing. They were like, doo-doo-doo.
It's they kind of try to show that Mothra has this little like antenna coming out near her mouth, and it kind of looks like they're supposed to climb up that. I always figure that since Mothra is very fuzzy, they probably just like nestle in her fur, and they're like warm on their way back to the island.
This whole time they were climbing up, by the way, in my head I was like, oh, Daenerys and the dragons. Okay. Like that.
You know what? Let's get a lawsuit going. George R.R. Martin ripped off Mothra.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm declaring it right now. But yeah, everybody says goodbye and even like says they should come visit again soon, which is pretty fun.
let's do this all
and they
again.
go-
This was fun, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a good time.
The little boy's like crying in the background, losing the love of his life.
Right, me, just like
Little
Yeah.
boy, aka Ryan.
brokenhearted that they can't stay with me.
Yeah, he just goes home and just climbs inside of a chicken to remember what it was like.
All he has to remember them by.
So they go back to Infant Island, and all the natives bow down to their beloved goddess, and that's Mothra, everybody.
Mothra.
So, as far as our typical Lost in Translation segment, first of all, the movies aren't that different. The Japanese and American movies are really similar. Basically, it's just that most of the time when the dialogue made you say, huh? In the American version, it's more clear than the Japanese version.
Better writing.
No stealth guillotines in the American version. Or Japanese version, I mean.
No. And as I mentioned, there's a more explicit like Mothra Jesus connection, which is very strange. But the best part of that is there's a shot of like after the priest says we have to put our faith in God now. Michi like starts to pray and she puts her like hands together, like clasps them together. And then Zen like tries to cross himself, like do the cross thing, but he doesn't know how to do it, so he like gives up like halfway through. It's very funny and charming. But otherwise pretty similar. So with that, I'd like to go on to, are you guys ready?
Oh, yeah.
The fourth semi-monthly Academy of Giant Monster Arts and Sciences Awards. Thank you.
It's a huge crowd that turned out for this one.
Yeah,
Hundreds and
people
hundreds.
really like Mothra. So I'd like to offer a little context for this award. We only have one to give out today, but
Wow.
I actually found online like this brilliant like thesis of like Mothra as a feminist icon, and it was like so clever and funny and well written that I tried to get the writer to be on the show. I was gonna surprise you guys, but we couldn't quite make it work. So instead, I'm going to attempt to tell you my version of it, which probably isn't as smart. It's a really interesting story of like two like indigenous women being exploited by a white dude from a foreign country, and how they get their revenge in a purely female way. You know, they're the power of Mothra, her forwardness, her aggressiveness. She's unashamed of how powerful she is, and they refuse to hold her back, the twin fairies. And so these two women are saved by another strong woman, which is maybe mostly unintentional, but like kind of cool regardless, I think. So my question to you all today, the award we have to hand out, is who is the most badass female character in this movie?
No, I think the reporters, though. I totally love that essay and the argument where it's coming from, but I love the reporter woman and her guillotine comments and her
So
like
good.
just not willing to back down. She's just doing whatever she wants.
She's great. Something I actually forgot is that there's like a running gag actually in the Japanese version, at least, where she's always like one step ahead of Zen. Like she's always bringing him the news.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and see, because I feel like the fairies are still a little like, thank you so much. Oh my gosh, we need you. Thank you so much. Thank you so. You know, they're still a little like need some help.
Yeah,
but, like,
they're
she's
not
just,
like, biting
boom,
anybody
boom.
or fighting for themselves in any way.
Right. She's just like,
That's
I'm gonna
true.
take my fucking pictures.
Yeah, I'm pro reporter. Also because like just, I mean, they say that Mothra is a woman, sure, but like I would say that the monster is fairly gender neutral. So
That's a fair point.
I don't know that a larva really gives off either
Right.
gender in my mind.
I think a larva is not gendered.
Well, Mothra identifies as a woman. I feel like we should
It's true.
respect that.
It's true. It's just hard for me to relate,
Fair enough. What are your thoughts, Sam?
I don't think my opinion counts on this one as much. But,
I have an opinion.
no, I mean I agree.
No. Let's mansplain this.
All right. Well, listen here. I agree. I like the female reporter. I will say I still hold out that just the moment where the peanuts are like, oh, you can't do anything to stop her. Mothra's coming for you, and then they step into their magic carriage is still like they could have dropped a million mics. A million mic drops wouldn't have been as great as that.
Very true. That
It's true.
moment was golden.
Expert shade.
I'm gonna guess Ryan's vote is for Mothra, but that's just preemptively guessing. Tell us where your heart lies, Ryan.
You're right. I would pick Mothra. It's a little more explicit the next time she shows up, so maybe I'm being shaded from like being the fan and like seeing everything with Mothra, but I'm just like, damn, like I love that lady that's doing it for themselves. She's the first like female giant monster that I'm aware of.
Are there
And,
multiple? Are there more than her? I've only heard of her.
There's two more Godzilla monsters that are female,
Okay.
like much later on.
Do they wear tiny bows?
No.
Yeah. How can we identify them?
One of them is a really massive plant monster, and the other one is also a big bug of a different kind.
Does Clifford have like a female companion?
I think so.
He does.
Right.
Yeah, I think-
Emily, his
No,
owner's.
but I
Well,
also
well, no,
think
that-
that I
no.
know I do think there's another dog that shows up eventually.
Oh, I see.
There's
what
got to
you
be.
mean.
I'm gonna Google it.
Speaking of feminist icons, just a weird side thing that just now, as I was reading about the Peanuts, in real life, one of the two married a Japanese rock star, vocalist for the Tigers, and his nickname, this guy's nickname was Julie because of his self-professed love of Julie Andrews, which I think is like that is he's
Oh,
Julie Andrews might be the feminist icon of this movie.
Oh, the things you find on the internet.
In an
That's
extremely
beautiful.
roundabout kind of way. Well, I would say then by a vote of 2 to 1 to 1, Michi, the photographer, takes it.
Michi, I want her to have her own side film.
Yeah.
What is she up to? What is her life like living in the big city? You know, working woman in the big city.
She actually took her talents to Newkirk City.
Yeah, and she'd invented the first combination camera/guillotine.
Right. Also, Ryan, this is a side note, but I saw a fun fact somewhere on the interwebs that they were originally supposed to be 4 tiny women, but
Oh.
then apparently twins are very rare in Japan, so they thought there would be a little more mystique if they were twins. To which I thought, would they have just doubled up the peanuts? What would they have done? Would they have get 2 sister performing acts?
Is twins more rare than quadruplets?
Quadruplets, right?
Maybe the
Is it-
four
That
were
is
just
my
like
thought.
like a girl group. They were just like 4 friends, like
yeah.
Cheetah
Right,
Girl
yeah.
style.
Perfect.
I think that was it. Yeah, they're like 4 friends, and they made it just twins, like the mystical.
All right, I
Greek
get that. I
twins.
get that.
But anyway, that brings us to the end of another semi-monthly Academy of Giant Monster Arts and Sciences Award. All right, you guys. I couldn't come up with some mystical Sam and magical Joanna questions. Maybe I got that backwards. So I just decided to call these the radioactively burning questions.
Perfect.
I give up. Okay, so if you could come up with an act for the fairies to do, what would it be? What kind of show would you put on to blow people away if you had willingly the 2 tiny women at your disposal? If they were like, sure, we'll do an act for you, what would it be?
I would take a tiny pool and find a way to have it slanted but mostly vertical, and then do a synchronized swimming routine with them in the middle. Like, that would be my act 2 of the carriage show. You know, like, what are
Gotcha.
some of the other, and like maybe some trapeze swings
That's what I was gonna
into
say.
the tiny pool. Very Cirque du Soleil, you know?
I love that. That's a great idea.
Oh man.
And they would have such cute swimsuits and like little flower, you know what I mean? It could be very cute.
Yeah, it's the colors. They
Yeah.
have these great colors. Yeah, I like it a lot. And the clear blue water.
Totally.
It's a good show.
I don't know. I wish I had time. There's got to be something. I wish I had time to think of something because I don't think I have anything better than that.
Sam loves
All
the
right,
carriage.
I'll give you some time. I do like your idea a lot, Joanna, but just to go in a completely different direction, what if we had them doing like a little monster truck show? Like they were
See,
driving
that was my
around on
next
little
thought.
motorcycles.
I thought that. Yep. But
Doing
it's
tricks.
dangerous. It's so dangerous, you know? I don't want to hurt them.
It's true. It's true. I don't want to hurt them either. Now you made me feel bad. Thanks, Joanna.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Is there could they have like ride around on like some gerbils or something and kind of just trot around the audience?
Like
Or they
maybe
could
it's
put-
like a circus, but instead of training lions, yeah, they train like various rodents,
Small animals.
small
Yeah.
animals.
Maybe that's the kid's rat.
Yeah.
We can put a little Mothra costume on the rat.
Oh my
and
gosh,
they can ride the little
yeah.
Mothra around. And so finally we come to the traditional question. Fortunately, this is a easier pick than most of the time, but everybody, who would you recommend this movie to?
I would recommend it to my friend Bridget, who lives in New York. And if I'm ever, living on that side of the country, perhaps I'll view it with her. She does a lot of sketch stuff and watches a lot of old-timey movies. And I feel like and she does a lot of cabaret performing. She was a musical theater major. I feel like the whole show would just be right up her alley.
Again, just thinking about this now, there was a kid I knew in high school named Ryan, not you, Ryan, Twist, and he was like 6'8" or 7. He was very, very tall, and he's since gotten married to a girl who's much, much shorter than him. Like,
Sam, I feel like have you brought this person up before?
I don't think so.
Okay,
I don't think
maybe
so,
just
but maybe.
an outside conversation.
I immediately forget the nonsense I've said. But yeah, so he, like, his wife has to be like 5'2", and like that's a large difference. And I would recommend it to him. I haven't spoken to him since high school, but I feel like he'd probably like it because it's pretty great. I'd recommend it to most people. But B, just to remind him that there are shorter girls out there.
Right, he could still keep looking. He could find a shorter one.
Well, no, I was gonna say more like, hey, I mean that too. If he's unhappy, I guess.
But like, you don't have it so bad.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. It's like, yeah, she's still 6 times taller than these girls.
Well, they're about a foot tall, so she's probably
5
not 6
times.
times taller than them.
Fair.
Do you got one, Charlotte?
I tried to tell my my 17-year-old brother to watch it with his friends. It was on our Amazon account, and he did not take me up on it, but I thought he would enjoy it. His friends are like into films, and they're like making stuff, and I feel like this would inspire them. But I think anybody would enjoy this movie. I think it's like fun to watch something so sort of ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just embraces how strange it is, and I love it. But to be a bit goofier with my recommendation, I guess I would recommend it to be required viewing for all gender studies classes in the United States.
Perfect. Bring it on.
And with that, does anybody have any final thoughts on Mothra?
A+.
Let me know when the tiny girls go on tour.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna buy season tickets.
It might hurt they're both dead now. That may be
Hologram.
Hologram, yeah. They might not have been real in the first place.
That is the show. I take it back. That's
Yeah,
what it is.
yeah.
Is exactly what it is in the movie, but as holograms inside of a carriage.
They can make a
surrounded.
documentary like Peanuts Play Coachella or something.
I'm so glad we had such a good time with Mothra. Next time is going to be even better, though. We're going to have the return of Godzilla, and we're going to see my very favorite movie of the entire series, King Kong versus Godzilla.
Yes. Finally, I was wondering when King Kong was going to pop up.
Right now. And because the American and Japanese versions are so different and feel so different, we're going to both watch both of them again. So we'll have a double header.
All right,
with the
Sam, here we
Japanese and English
go.
Let's do it.
Double header.
In the meantime, if you want to get ready, go watch King Kong vs. Godzilla. The Japanese version is quite hard to find, but if you are persistent or wealthy or both,
Or Ryan.
you'll get it. Or me. Just ask me, I've got the hookup. But in any case, English version, pretty easy to track down, so you can at least watch that and just be amazed by how different the Japanese version is, I guess. But yes, if you want to watch along with us, go watch King Kong vs. Godzilla. So in the meantime, I want to thank Charlotte for joining us today and being a lovely guest star for
Thanks
us.
for having me.
Sure. Is there any last thing that you want to plug or mention?
One thing I'll just say is that like did not know anything about any Godzilla, anything, and now I am like I would watch more of these.
Oh,
Dang,
I
you got
got
a
my
convert,
first
Ryan.
convert.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Just
I'm so proud of this episode.
don't watch Rodan.
Never
Yeah, no,
never
don't
watch
watch
Rodan.
Rodan.
And don't watch it twice.
Or Godzilla Raids again.
Any of the movies we've watched other than this one and the first one, don't watch.
Yeah.
Right.
I'd also like to thank you, the audience. We appreciate you so much. And we love it when you comment on any of our videos or podcasts or wherever we put up our stuff. We love it when you give us reviews, especially when they're 4 and 5 stars. Let me check out and see if we perhaps have a new one. We don't, but we see our ratings going up slowly and steadily, and we are so happy that we have this perfect 5-star rating right now. Maybe you can add to it.
And don't forget to comment about who you like better, Sam or myself, because we are still taking votes to see who will remain on the podcast.
As of now,
it's
we're
ongoing.
tied.
Running joke.
As of now, we're tied, and that is a complete. That is a disappointment of the highest order, because I should be in the lead by like at least 3.
Leave a comment on iTunes, YouTube, wherever's best for you, wherever you like to listen to our podcast. It would be a big help to us. You can also send us an email and we'll read out your message. In the meantime, take care and keep following the word of Godzilla. Godzillavangelists, a Geek Stew Network podcast, is brought to you by me, Ryan Sargent, and my friends, Joanna Brodecki and Sam Schlenker. We'd like to thank our fabulous editor and mixer, Rachel Deering. All our incredible music is composed by Robert Mai, and our wonderful artwork is drawn by Cassidy Stone. Special thanks to our families, friends, and the wonderful artists who made the movies we talked about today. Godzillavangelists is a satirical, critical work, not affiliated or endorsed by Toho, Legendary Pictures, or anyone behind the Godzilla series. Visit our website at godzillavangelists.com. We're also on Twitter at GodzillaCast and Instagram at GodzillaVangelists. If you prefer to listen to us online, we have a YouTube channel, and the latest episode is always on SoundCloud too. Thank you so much for listening, and we hope you join us next episode. In the meantime, keep spreading the word of Godzilla.